All right, so this is always a fun discussion. And again, I mean, I know this is a constant refrain rather. Um, but I really, really wish that we could have this conversation in class discussing the nature of hangovers. So on Tuesday, right, we talked about the nature of sobriety and we asked some, I think, really meaningful questions about sobriety, what it means to be sober, of the sober self, of how that relates to the inebriated self, if there's a difference or if they're just variations of the same self just manifesting differently. And again, like what it means to be sober. I think that's a really important question. And what it means to be sober in reference to this kind of like focus on not just alcohol, but perhaps other instances of those substances that we consume. And speaking of consuming, let's talk about hangovers. Okay. Again, this is always one of the most lively kind of discussions here. And I think that you might be surprised with where we go here on the nature of hangovers. Because let's just say, right, if I were to open up class and I were to say, what's a hangover, right? And I'm sure that many of you would feel emboldened perhaps or embarrassed perhaps to describe your worst hangover or a hangover that you particularly remember. And even that in and of itself is really interesting, and we'll get to that in a second. But I do think that there are going to be some themes that we can connect with the nature of a hangover here that we've kind of been building over the last couple of weeks. And it's taken me a little bit kind of my own personal journey, of my own personal suffering of various hangovers, right? To kind of make some of these connections that, again, I think are worthy of kind of offering for a space to examine here, okay? Now, when we think about hangovers, right, I mean, again, most kind of easily we're able to say, oh, well, a hangover is, that really terrible feeling that you feel after a night of drinking, okay? Or hangover lasts all day. Or, perhaps, if you're really lucky, you say, I don't get hangovers. And I get jealous. Just wait till you get a little older. Maybe you've heard that before, maybe not, but if you do choose to consume alcohol, and even, what's interesting about hangovers is I think sometimes there's the association that you only get hangovers if you got really, really drunk. That's not always the case. I've had very bad hangovers when I've had 2 or 3 beers, right? And so there's, again, kind of like really interesting things to say. I did not drink very much, but yet, the next day, not feeling all too well, okay? And as you get a little bit older, again, I'm not that much older, but I'm kind of older. As you get a little bit older, hangovers do not necessarily get easier. All right. So, what can we learn about hangovers? Like, what is it, aside from, and this is, again, I think something that's interesting. The question, what can we learn from hangovers? And there's often the response here, right, that, oh my gosh, right, I'm so hungover, I'm never drinking again. And then guess what? You drink again. Why? You know how terrible you felt that one time, or those multiple times, and you kind of did this vow in your mind to say, I'm never going to feel this way again. I feel like garbage. I can't go to class. I can't, do whatever it is you're trying to do because you're so hungover, or you're feeling hungover. Maybe the level of hangover, right? But yet, even when you've had a really, really bad hangover and you say, oh, I'm never drinking again, maybe you fully know that you're joking about that statement. But if you're kind of serious and then a week later you drink again, what's going on there? Fully knowing that even a week later, it might very well be the case that you're going to be just as hungover as you were a week before. Right? So, like, what's going on? I think that that's a really kind of worthwhile question to ask. And so we'll dive in kind of in a more concentrated way here in this next couple videos. But these are, again, just ways of like starting to think about something that we all know exists, that we all know is a possibility when it comes to the consumption of alcohol, but yet a lot of us don't change our behavior even in the face of knowing that there are some side effects, that there are some after effects, sometimes very serious after effects of consuming alcohol. Right?